Alright, yeah, welcome back. Today we're going to be doing Unit 0, Day 2. Some reminders before we get started. Make sure you got your history notebook out and you're taking notes as you go through the video. And make sure you complete the vocabulary for this video. Review it in Quizlet, mark it in your notebook, and we make sure you're reviewing those vocabulary words. So let's go ahead and get started. So our key terms for today are going to be the caste system, Varna, Aryans, Dharma, Karma, the Upanishads, Riga Vedas, Moksha, Sati, Samsara, Jainism, Ahisma, Buddhism, Four Noble Truths, Eightfold Path, Siddhartha Gautama, Mahayana, Theravada, Pagoda, and Stupa. Our key concepts for today are going to be the Indian political history pre-1200 and the major religions in India and belief system. So India is located in South Asia, and we're going to be talking about Indian civilizations. Its modern day equivalent would be India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. The pre-post-classical civilizations, those before 1200 CE, had two major civilizations. The first one being the Maurya dynasty. The Maurya dynasty was Buddhist, with a strong military. The second would be the Gupta, which would be the Hindu dynasty for India. Right, from around 200 to 200 CE, we had the Gupta dynasty, which was a Hindu dynasty. There were a lot of economic and cultural advances during the Gupta dynasty. India was very patriarchal, and women did not have very many rights. One thing that developed even before the Maurya or the Gupta dynasty was something called Sati. In India, when the husband died, the children were supposed to take care of the mother. The idea was that the woman, the mother, was then a burden to the rest of her family. And in Hinduism, people are cremated. Sati is when the woman is supposed to jump in the fire during her husband's funeral and kill herself to avoid being a burden on her children. This practice is very much reflective of the patriarchal nature of Hinduism, and I want to touch that this practice is still practiced today and was only banned about 10, 15 years ago. Right? The Indian civilizations were very, very advanced in math and science. They developed the concept of zero and a number system, and those number systems eventually spread to Western nations. So let's talk about the very first people to come to India were the Indo-Europeans. They're called Aryans. They arrived around 1500 BCE, well before the Maurya dynasty. They colonized India during a 1,000-year period known as the Vedic Age. The Aryans were white Indo-European nomads who transmitted their ideas and stories and works orally. These were known as the Vedas. And during this time, we developed two written languages. We have a sacred language called Sanskrit, and we have a daily use language called Prakrit. Cool. Let's move into the class system, right? When the Aryans come to India, they create a class system based off race. This is known as the caste system. They placed themselves at the very top, and the local Indians, originally from South Asia, at the lower caste. This system was based off of Varna, meaning skin color, which designates your social class. So the lighter your skin color, the higher you are in the social class. The higher caste, of course, due to the system being put in place by the Aryans, are going to have a lighter skin tone, where the darker skinned people are going to be lower caste. The caste system was hereditary and rigid with no social mobility, meaning if you were born a Sudra, you are not becoming a Kshatriya in that lifetime. Your family cannot become a Kshatriya, right? You are stuck. There is zero movement. There are four main Varnas. There were the Brahmins, which are priests, the Kshatriyas, which are warriors, the Vaishyas, which are herders, farmers, merchants, and craftspeoples, and you have Sudras, which are farm workers, servants, and laborers. And eventually, at the very, very bottom of the caste, you have the untouchables. These were people who had jobs considered unclean, such as butchery, cleaning latrines, things like that. Right, Sati, which we discussed earlier, was a social custom related to widow burning. All right, let's talk about Hinduism. Hinduism and the caste system originally come from the Aryans and mixed with local Indian beliefs through syncretism. The major texts of Hinduism are the Upanishads and the Riga Vedas. Right, Hinduism believes in what is known as a universal soul. This is called Brahman, that encompasses everything. right? So we would have, if we practice Hinduism, we have a individual soul called Atman, right? And the goal of Hinduism is for our Atman to become one with Brahman, the universal soul, and thus becoming one with the universe. This is achieved through a reincarnation cycle, right? This is samsara. Your duties within your caste, so doing your job in your caste, is called dharma, right? And what happens in your next life is based on how you act, called karma. If you follow your dharma, you'll be reincarnated into a higher caste in your next life. Again, this cycle is called samsara. The ultimate goal is to end the reincarnation cycle and reach moksha, which is the permanent liberation from your physical incarnation and become one with Brahman. Right? Hinduism reinforces the caste system by teaching that failing to follow your dharma will result in you being born into a lower caste in your next life. Hinduism also teaches respect for all living things, and most Hindus are vegetarian. Cows are sacred in Hinduism, right? And they also have cremation rituals, burning the bodies of the dead. Another religion that emerged as a reaction to Hinduism is Jainism. The swastika was originally a symbol of peace in Jainism, though it was later corrupted by Hitler. The founder of Jainism was Mahavira. He was the Jaina, or the conqueror. His followers were called Jains. Jainism was inspired by the Upanishads and taught that everything in the universe possesses a soul. This led to the principle of Ahisma, or non-violence toward all living things. Jainism is very, very strict. For example, Jains would sweep in front of them to avoid stepping on insects and cover their water before drinking to avoid harming microorganisms. Jainism promotes equality since all beings have a soul, and this really appeals to a lot of lower castes people in South Asia and also women. Buddhism emerged after Jainism and focused on equality, and was a reaction against the strictness of Jainism and the strictness of Hinduism. Buddhism, although very strict as well, was a lot easier to follow. Buddhism was founded by Siddhartha Gautama, an Indian prince from the Kshatriya class. After seeing suffering for the first time, he renounced his comfortable life and went on search for enlightenment. He meditated for 40 days under a tree and discovered the Four Noble Truths. All life involves suffering. Desire is the cause of suffering. Elimination of desire brings an end to suffering. And the Noble Eightfold Path brings the elimination of desire. The Noble Eightfold Path includes right belief, right resolve, right speech, right behavior, right occupation, right effort, right contemplation, and the right meditation. The goal of Buddhism is to reach nirvana, a perfect state of spiritual independence. Buddhism did not focus on the soul or an afterlife, but rather on a philosophy of living. It spread quickly, especially among those of the lower caste, because it offered salvation without the need of the Brahmins. Buddhism promoted equality and appealed to women, as all souls within Buddhism are considered equal. Right? Buddhism also spread through monasteries and trade routes, becoming a missionary religion, meaning that it would go to a place, establish a Buddhist temple or a Buddhist mission, and then they would spread from there. Right? However, Buddhism did split right after Siddhartha Gautama's death, and the schism centered on whether or not he was a god or a man, a distinction between the religion and historical philosophies of Buddhism. Mahayana Buddhism, the larger branch, spread to Central and East Asia, blending with Hinduism and more local beliefs like Taoism. Mahayana Buddhists believe that Buddha was a god. Right? So Mahayana, Buddha's a god. On the other hand, we have Theravada. Theravada Buddhism views Buddha as a human and focuses on his original teachings. It is practiced in places such as Sri Lanka and some parts of India and Southeast Asia. Buddhism eventually faded in India as it merged with Hinduism, but remained popular in parts of East and Southeast Asia. Some form of architecture of Buddhist architecture you should know includes stupas. Stupas were the earliest form of Buddhist architecture. Buddhists would walk around the stupa eastward while praying as a form of meditation. Pagodas, right? They're a they're originally from India. They're going to spread to Southeast Asia and have a distinct Chinese or Japanese architectural style. Pagodas are Buddhist places of worship where people can go inside to light incense, pray, and meditate. You should know these terms, pagoda and stupa. That's all I have for you for today. That's going to be the end of Unit 0, Day 2. If you have any questions, please ask in class, and I'll see you guys in class. All right, bye.